group. So if we have this association in our brain of like, I can call up all of these times where I've made a fool of myself and I know that I'm just going to be thinking about it for the rest of the night, I should just avoid it. I should just like say I'm sick and not go. So you cancel. You say you're sick, you don't go, and you are filled with like this accidental like flooding of relief because you're like, okay, I avoided the really scary thing. But that's basically just reinforcing to yourself. Like,
Reinforcing it.
it's
Yeah, that
saying
makes
it's true.
sense.
It's saying not only is that thought true, but like if I cancel being in social situations, I'm safe. So that makes it so the next time you're even more likely to say, oh no, I can't do it. And maybe even like come up with
Yeah.
excuses for yourself of like, I'm really busy. I don't really want to be friends with
Yeah.
them. And it's all because we're
Yeah.
avoiding these negative thoughts. And a really cool
That makes sense.
technique to avoid that is being aware of like yourself as a person and what your urges are. So let's say you're somebody who says, I really want to make new friends. I really want to get out there and kind of overcome this. When you are in a situation and you're getting that behavioral urge that says, shut it down, run away, you don't want to, not today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like recognizing that urge and that thought and making the commitment to yourself of just straight up doing the opposite of the thought. We call this opposite action in DBT, and it can work across emotions. Let's say you're somebody who gets really, really jealous whenever your partner brings up another person. And every time your partner brings up another person, you're like, oh, another girl. Now, I noticed that you didn't mention
Right,
the
yeah.
gender, and thus I know that you're talking about another girl. And,
Mhm.
and you're like filled with this like jealousy, and part of you might be like, you know what? Like, I'm just going to ignore him for the rest of the night. He doesn't know how lucky he is to have me. Like, if
Yeah,
your
yeah, yeah.
urge is to do that and it doesn't fit the facts of the situation, just do the opposite. You love this person, you want to be with them, and your body's
Right.
telling you to like shut them out, avoid them. Do the opposite of that. Like, do something that you really love doing with that person. So recognizing the emotion, recognizing the urge, and then like forcing yourself to do the opposite. That's a really good way to like rebuild those pathways, and it's a good way to like really quickly show yourself that these thoughts that I'm having, it's a possibility. It's a possibility that like I go to the social interaction and like everybody makes fun of me afterwards. Could happen.
Mhm.
Chances are it's
Mhm.
not going to. And the more times you have
Right.
this experience of it not happening, the more likely it could be that
Right.
like you should be jealous because your partner is interested in this other person that they randomly met. It could be. We don't
Right,
know.
right,
But
right.
having like those, deciding that, you know what, I'm going to spend extra time with my significant other. I'm going to like, I, there's this one practice of like, actually write down the things that you love about them. Like, if you're feeling strong jealousy, you're feeling it because you love them. You don't want to lose them.
Mhm.
The opposite of avoiding that person and being mad at them is thinking about the things you really love about them and like spending that time with
Mhm.
them. That's actually going to just
Mhm.
grow your relationship with them, and it's going to make you a more suitable partner instead of being this one who's like kind of almost wishy-washy about
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I
Sorry,
love talking about this so much.
I'm like just going off.
It all, like it all intertwines together, and I know you're very scientific and analytical of everything, but I like to have though that part of it, but then I also like to believe in, like, the universe and
Hmm.
energy and, like, all of that manifesting and stuff, so it's really interesting to hear, like, the actual science of it and stuff
Yeah,
because I think it all really comes down to, like, positive thinking and just
totally.
believing in, like, these things that you tell
Oh
yourself
yeah.
because I mean, I can go on and on about that, but you kept on, like, mentioning habits. Before I, like, ask you the sorry, I'm, like, going on and on, but
Kim, I love this. Like, I will keep you for hours. So no, do not apologize.
okay, okay, okay. So, when it comes to, like, habits, I've read a couple books about habits.
Nice.
The Power of Habit, how that has to do with, like, sales and, like, marketing,
Hmm.
which is really interesting, and then, like, Atomic Habits, how it's a
Nice.
really small things, like
Yeah.
and those books I love, and I think you can probably speak to that, like, what you see as far as, like, what works for people to break habits and then build new habits? Like, are you always having to replace your one habit with a better habit? Or,
Yeah.
like, how can you let me actually think of a real example. So, if somebody wants to change their habit of or stop a habit of hitting their snooze, Like,
Oof, yeah.
is that an example you can work with?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So this is like also just like close to home because I am the worst at this. Like I am always,
Okay.
I'm like 5 more minutes will totally make me feel better. Like I
Yeah, yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
I don't mind if I have to rush to work and I'm like, um, I think like, so this kind of gets into what we were talking about before of like when you had brought up when a baby is refusing food, it's because of this
Mhm.
like want for attention as opposed to like the baby just doesn't like that
Right.
food. That's a very so, and the response I would assume is then like if your baby's like refusing food, don't give them attention. So that is very much a behavioral approach, and this works for us
Right.
a lot. Like,
Mhm.
um, if I am trying to decrease the behavior, so I don't want my baby crying when I give them new food, or like with the alarm
Mhm.
clock, I don't want to keep on pressing snooze. The thought is that you need to stop reinforcing the thing that they're trying to get. So, not
Mhm.
giving the baby attention would mean that they're going to be like, oh, shoot, I might as well eat these peas because like it's not working. Or
Right.
like,
Right.
um, so how that translates to the snooze button is like, what is it that you're trying to get out? Like, why is it that you are pressing the
Like
snooze
the
over?
reward.
Right, right. Or it's like this
Right.
learned pattern of like, I've been pressing the snooze for 20 years now. And like,
Yeah, yeah,
you know
yeah.
what? Like, even if it makes me feel shitty about myself showing up late to work,
Mhm.
like, that it's something that the positives outweigh the negatives for me for whatever
Mhm.
reason. So the first step is saying like, what is it that's like behind this? What's the function? And that can get a lot of answers. So number one, like, are you just really tired because you need more sleep? And if that's the case, like,
Mhm.
what is so bad about snoozing it for an extra 5 minutes? Like, are you actually getting in
Mhm.
trouble? Or are you like setting these expectations for yourself where you're basically saying, if I press the snooze button, that means that I'm lazy, I'm bad, and everybody like I'm
Mhm.
a failure of a person. Like, is that what you're telling yourself? And in which case, you're not going to have like a lot of motivation to change that. Asking yourself what it is that you're trying to get at by doing the behavior is the first step to it. I think a big part of just like my mental health development and what I try to instill with my clients too is like, and this comes from ACT therapy. So this is acceptance and commitment therapy. And it basically says like, what are the stories you're telling yourself? And like how those behaviors fit into it. So for example, like love my mom so much. Love her. She's a goddess of a
Mhm.
woman. This woman is so organized and clean. This is the most organized person I have ever met in my life. And I am not. I am not a clean, organized person. But like growing up, because that was around me, the story that I told myself or learned was if you don't keep a perfectly clean house, if you aren't like perfectly organized, you're lazy. You're a failure. You're not like being an adult because you're being lazy. But in reality, like that's not at all what that means. My priorities and my values are different. So I was basically like trying to punish myself by keeping my house like perfectly clean to like the ideal that my mom would have had because that's the story I've been telling myself. So instead of trying to break that habit, what I did, and this is God bless my therapist, he was fantastic. It was accepting that part of me and saying, like, I like having people come over and hang out at my house. And like, I don't give a shit if they think my house is like dirty or messy. I really
Yeah.
don't. So it's like, I'm putting all this stress and pressure on myself to reach this ideal when like that doesn't really matter to me as a person. So,
Right.
but I guess the long and short of it is like when it comes to habits, a lot of times we're just way too harsh on ourselves. And like
Mhm.
similar to when we were talking about social media, like we're constantly comparing ourselves to what we're seeing because we're such
Mhm.
social creatures. And
Mhm.
we're saying like, oh, I want to be like that person. That person always has a perfectly clean house. I need to change something about me. Oh, this person is
Mhm.
always 10 minutes early to their work day. They're like always so they're able to like do a
Yeah.
run before work. Like, what's wrong with me? When in reality,
Right.
like you probably have different values and things that are very different in your life and your way of living compared to these people you're comparing yourself to. So I feel like, I hope I didn't just like skirt around the question. I also just always press the
No,
snooze button, so it's probably I'm probably not the right person to ask about like changing that habit.
no, I understand. Like, I think so that's a good lesson. Like, you have to actually look at why you want to stop a
Yeah.
habit.
Mhm.
But yeah, I as you're talking, I have so many things to say, but I want to kind of wind down
Mhm.
and talk about more like the individual and how you can understand your identity.
Mhm.
And you mentioned that you see some trends in your
Yeah.
practice. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say about that. If somebody feels like they're not sure where to go, like they're in a feel lost, like you said, I can't remember what compartment that was called.
I already forgot too. That's all right.
Okay.
They're like, yeah, figuring it out.
So yeah, they're not really sure. They're no commitment, I
Yeah.
guess is the
Mhm.
word that I'll use.
So, a couple things, and I guess first with the trends is that I see this in almost every single client that has ever come to me. So it's a very isolating, lonely feeling being like, I'm supposed to know who I am and what I want to do, and I don't. And I better just like latch on to something or like commit to something quick because I'm running out of time. And that's just like simply not the case. This is like a societal pressure that is just like not updated for the times. You're supposed to always be changing. So it's actually like, um, first I would recommend a shift in your what you're telling yourself. Like, yeah, this is scary as hell. You don't know what the next chapter is, but that's also dope. You have like this whole new chapter where you can like explore any other part of you that you're like might be interested in. And if it sucks, if it doesn't work out, that's fine because then you just get to do it again. Like our lifelong process is supposed to be trying out these different hats and deciding what parts are consistent with what we like and what parts are not serving us. And I was wondering, Kim, if you wanted to do a quick exercise with me, and I think it might
Yeah,
serve as a good example. So there's a couple
sure.
different ways to do this, and we're just going to do the real abbreviated one. But what I want you to
Okay.
do, and first think of it like this: our identities are made up of different roles that we play.
Mhm.
So not only, Kim, are you a mother and a wife and a daughter, but you're also a content creator. You're also like, and I mean, it goes on and on. You're also a friend. You're also like an aunt. You have all these different
Right,
hats.
right.
I would ask you to think about either, well, which part of your, would you rather we focus on like your professional, like work identity or like your home, like identity?
Work.
Okay. So think about, and it could be anybody, think about somebody who you really admire in that field. Think about somebody who you're like,
Mhm.
man, that person really got me like on this path, even like, wow, they are,
Mhm.
what a rad person.
Yeah.
Can you think of somebody? Are you thinking of
Yep.
somebody?
Yep.
Give me 3 to 5 words that you would use to describe that person. And it doesn't have to be like,
Um,
it could just be anything. It could be like a
yeah.
YouTuber and there's somebody who's really open, really funny. Like, what are some
Yeah.
descriptive words you'd use?
Um, Motivated,
Motivated, nice,
inspiring,
inspiring.
energetic, smart. More?
That's perfect.
Should I do another?
So
Okay.
I'm going to stick especially with the motivated and energetic and inspiring. And you literally just said and smart. I'm gonna keep smart out of
Smart,
that because I
yeah.
feel like that's loaded because we're all very smart. We
Okay.
just like,
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
but now you can ask yourself, as far as my image of myself in my workday, on a scale of 0% to 100%, how motivated do you think you are, you as a person, Kim?
90.
90%, yeah. So that
Mm,
is a value of yours that you're living really in line with. What about
right.
inspiring? And it's okay also if you rate yourself low. That's kind of part of the experience. It's not
Yeah.
saying like I don't want you to feel like vulnerable or anything,
Um,
but like how inspiring do you feel?
I feel like that's my goal. I don't feel like I've become really inspiring yet.
Yes, yes. Okay, you like low key beat me to it. So like Our
Okay.
identity, our identity are these values that we have. A really good way to see what our values are think about these people that you admire and actually put words to it. Like